Hey, Elevate! Welcome to my living room. Well, this was unexpected, but as I'm sitting here in my living room, I'm thinking about how you guys have probably spent a lot of your time in your home the last week or so, maybe had some unexpected spring break changes. And as we're facing all of the things going on in our world right now, it is important to me and it is important to our team that you stay as connected as possible. So we're going to have some fun things planned via social media, via Google Hangouts. And one of them is that this is what our Sunday evenings are going to look like for the unforeseeable future, or for the foreseeable future. So obviously this is not what we've planned. And things change and circumstances change a lot in life. And even outside of what's going on in our current situation, maybe you didn't make a team that you were thinking you were going to make, or something changed with your family that you hadn't planned. The reality is that in life we face a lot of things that are unplanned and a lot of situations that are not ideal. And the Bible actually has something to say about that. So how do you plan for the unplanned? Because it's just part of life. That's how life works. That's how God works. And there are a lot of things that happen in life that we just cannot plan for. But as Christ followers, we can prepare our hearts for the unplanned times. And so tonight, we're going to talk about how life situations come, how circumstances come. Sometimes life just comes right at you and you cannot change it and you cannot do anything about it. It sometimes can start when you're a kid. It could have started for you in elementary school. It might be starting for you right now in middle school, but life happens and things change. What if we just embraced what happened and allowed God to do what only He can do through it? Could you imagine how He could use you? So tonight we're going to look at a story in the Bible, and then we're going to talk about 3 things that we can learn from this story and ways that we can be challenged, that you can be challenged sitting right there in your living room or your bedroom or wherever you are right now. So we're going to turn to Judges. So if you have your phone, which you are allowed to have at home, unlike at Elevate, turn in your phone or in your actual paper Bible to the book of Judges. We are going to talk about a man named Gideon. He is part of the nation of Israel. All right. And so in the Bible, if you hear someone speaking from the nation of Israel, you can know that that is God's people. So anyone from the nation of Israel is God's people. So we have God's people and they're slaves to a people called the Midianites. Try to say that 5 times right now. Go. So now in this group, there's a part of the Midianites called Manasseh. And you don't have to remember that group, but it's just as if somebody asked you what country you were from and you said, I'm from America, then they might ask you, all right, what state in America? In which you would say, the House of Mickey Mouse, of course, Florida. So that's what Manasseh is to the Midianites. But it's just like if you were telling them that. So the problem with Manasseh is that they had no respect in the nation. No respect. Gideon was a low man on the totem pole, yet God chose to speak to him. So turn to Judges chapter 6, verses 12 through 16. We're going to pick up this story. If you don't want to turn there, it's totally fine. Just listen to me. So first we start in chapter 12 where it says, when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. He calls Gideon a mighty warrior. Now remember, this is somebody who was a nobody, and God is calling him a mighty warrior, just like He calls you a mighty warrior. It goes on in verse 13. Pardon me, my Lord, Gideon replied, but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all His wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, did not the Lord bring us out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian. So then Gideon responds, if you're with us, God, why does all of this happen to us? And how many times have we been in situations where we're going, okay, God, like, I know that you said you're with us. Why am I facing this right now? Why is this happening right now? What in the world is the plan? This is not what I signed up for. What is your plan, God? And so that's where we find Gideon. He's having a moment with God, and he's not just having a nice churchy moment of, I'm going to follow you forever. I love you forever. This is a beautiful moment. God, no, he's being real with God. Okay. He is not happy, and he is letting him know it. He's saying, God, you weren't there for me. I don't even know if I believe in you. I have doubts of you right now. And how many times have we potentially been in a place like that, where what we're facing is not what we expected? It's not what we like. And we wonder, is God there? It goes on, verse 14 said, the Lord turned to him and said, go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you? And he says, pardon me, my Lord. Maybe he's like really proper. Gideon replied, but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I'm the least in my family. And the Lord answered, I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive. So God replies, go in the strength that you have. Am I not sending you to do this? And God has a way of building you up and bringing a reality check into your life. The question is, do you really want to be built up? Do you really want to experience the plan that God has for your life? Only you can answer that for yourself. Or do you just really want God to execute the plan that you have for your life? This is a very real, good question that you need to ask yourself. So let's review this for a second. The Midianites are slaves. God is calling Gideon to save his people. Gideon is rejecting it and can't believe it. Then he finally, through a series of events that we're not going to cover today, accepts the will of God, the call of God on his life, and God uses him to do unexpected things. And that's the story. So how does that affect us? How does that affect you right now, sitting in your living room or your kitchen or your room watching this video? How does this affect you? Well, I am so glad you asked. Number one is plan to start over. So just go ahead and plan to start over. Life is full of times where you are starting over. Think about it. When you were in elementary school, you had to start over in middle school. Some of you in a new school. You started out as the new kids in town, all right? The new kids in your hallways. When you go from middle school to high school, you are now freshmen. You are no longer the upperclassmen in 8th grade. You are starting over in high school. Then when you graduate high school, you go from being a high school senior to being a college freshman. Very different, okay? And you start over and you start a new level of independence in your life. When you graduate college, you start over as an adult in a lot of different ways, having your own place to live, supporting yourself, all of these different things, and it continues on and on and on. And you start over, and what your new norm looks like is completely different. So if you can learn how to do this well at the age of 14 or 16 or however old you are watching this video, if you can learn how to start over now at your age, you're going to be light years ahead of most other 16-year-olds in your life. So learn how to start over well and just prepare for it. It's going to come. And for Gideon, he accepted the call and goes out and says, okay, God, what do you want me to do to save my people? Are you willing to accept that call and say, okay, God, what do you want me to do right now to help and support and love my family during this time? What do you want me to do with my friends? Do you want me to invite them to be on this call? What is it that you want me to do? And I will do it. And you know what happens? For being obedient to God, he gets a different name in the community. They renamed him in the community, and he lost his name Gideon, and they started calling him Jerubbaal. Now, Jerubbaal is not a good word. It is not a good name. But sometimes your obedience to the plan of God causes you to lose something. I know a lot of you watching this right now know that to be true because I've had conversations with you about it. Sometimes when you're obedient to God, you lose something. He lost his name. Some of you are going to go after God, and sometimes people are going to call you names. Sometimes that is part of the journey. Because even though the community called him that, do you remember what God called him? Mighty warrior. He called him mighty warrior because there's a bigger plan in place that we can't see, that Gideon couldn't see. He plans to be with us and never forsake us. That's in the Bible, okay? He plans to complete a good work in us. That means in me and in you. He planned that his son's death would bring us life. It's a part of God's plan for you to start over sometimes. Why? So that he can be at the center of whatever you are doing. Number 2, we plan to say no. We say no to good things so that we can say yes to great things. And there are a lot of things that are distracting in this time. But what is the main thing that God is calling you to? What is the main thing that God is calling you to think about right now? What is the main thing that God is calling you to focus on right now? Listen, you guys are going to have so much at your fingertips. You have so much time right now to fill. What are you going to choose to invest that time in? And I'm not saying all of those things are bad. I'm just saying there should also be a place and a focus to grow in Jesus during this time, to stay connected with others, and to really see what God has for you. So I love that you want to play football. I love that you're on a soccer team. I love that you're great in band. I love that you're a cheerleader or going to be once again. I love that you guys are good at those things. But if you don't make your grades, you can't do those extra things, right? If you don't do the main thing in a school situation, you can't do the extra thing. So what is the main thing in your life? Gideon accepts the call. He decides to show up. He goes to battle. He's got 32,000 dudes there ready to back him up. He says, all right, let's go do this. And he says, all right, God, you're going to go before us. The victory's already in your name. You said we had it. And God says, time out. Hold up. Before you do that, you have way too many people. And you know, when you're going to war, there's not really such thing as too many people, right? Gideon says, why? And God says, because if you win the war with 32,000 people, you're going to give yourself the credit. So Gideon goes down to 10,000 people and he says, all right, let's go. And God says, it's still too many people. So it comes down to, they ended up with 300 people, the original 300, if you go back and read the story. And he went to battle, and he had to give up his comfort zone to be in the zone that God wanted him to be in, the zone for a miracle. And that's where God is. How many of you are living outside of your comfort zone right now? A lot of the world is outside of their comfort zone right now. Maybe you're feeling pretty comfortable in your bed and your PJs all day, but you're in a different time, in a different season, a different level of comfort. So we've said number 1, plan to start over. Number 2, plan to say no. Number 3, plan to be creative. So Gideon is at war. He's going to war and he's thinking, all right, we got to get our spears. We're going to get all of the armor. We're going to get everything we need to win this war, because that's what you do when you're going to battle. And guess what God gives him? He gives to every man, the 300, he gives a trumpet and a jar of fire. No spears, no armor, but a trumpet and a jar of fire. So Gideon didn't join the army here. He joined the band. All right. And I know we have some band folks out there. There ain't nothing wrong with the band. But the band doesn't usually get on the field to play the game and go to battle. They encourage and they do all their awesome things, but those aren't usually the frontline people. All right. But he accepted the call and said, okay, God, I'm going to do this. And because we serve a creative God, a God who makes billions of people different from each other. You are completely different than anybody else in Elevate. You are completely different than anybody else in this world because we serve a God who is creative, and he has fearfully and wonderfully made you in his image. And are we willing to be creative in the way that God has wired us to be creative when we face things that are unplanned? So if you look in the Bible, Gideon had a jar and a trumpet. David had a rock. Moses had a stick. Noah had a boat. And Jesus had basically a fish nugget Happy Meal. Okay? Completely ridiculous when you think about it. But those aren't super cool things to overcome things with. Yet Gideon defeats an army with the trumpet. Noah overcomes a giant with a rock. Moses parts a sea with a stick. Noah saves mankind with the boat. And Jesus feeds 5,000 with a Happy Meal. I mean, come on. We serve a creative God. We serve a God who is creative, but he can only be creative if we allow him into our creativity and if we allow him into our lives. So I want to challenge you as you sit at home doing schoolwork and talking with your friends online and playing video games and all of these different things. I want to encourage you to figure out what it is that God is speaking to you during this time and figure out how God wants to continually use you and how he wants to keep the main thing in your life. We have an amazing group of leaders who who are going to be hosting Google Hangouts starting at 6 o'clock, which is probably in just a little bit for you. I want you to click on the link and join those Hangouts, and we're going to have some discussion questions for you just like we do normally after a message on Sundays at Elevate. So we will see you there in the Hangouts, and we will see you next week. Keep an eye out on Instagram. If you do not have Instagram right now, I highly encourage you to get it because we're going to have some fun activities and such planned throughout the weeks, and we want to stay connected. So if you guys have any questions, if you need prayer for something specific, if you have anxiety right now, if you're fearful of whatever it is, whatever circumstance going on in your life, please, please, please reach out to myself or one of our leaders so we can pray with you and walk you through this. But we love y'all. We'll see you soon.